for me. Run through the land, you run through my soul. Bring me wisdom and peace. Run through all ages and all of life's stages. You bring me around to find my release.
Hi, welcome to be my guest. Today we have Barbara Whitman with us, and Barbara has been with us before, and I forgot, and I feel horrible. She is an author from Rhode Island, and she wrote this new book. I haven't got a chance to read it yet. It's called Have Mercy. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
Barbara's been through a lot. She had surgery, right?
I did.
And she is recovering, and what a trooper. She got up here with her cane, and we're up on the second floor, and it was even hard to get on the stair ride, right?
It was.
Yeah.
But I managed.
You can always write it down. We can bring it up. Write it down. Barbara, what part of Rhode Island are you in?
I'm in Johnston.
You're in Johnston.
Yep.
I think that when I lived in Providence off of Smith Street, I would go, is it Route 40? You go, and it takes you, there used to be a thrift shop, Salvation Army maybe? Something, a thrift shop.
Maybe. Route 44?
Yeah. It had a floor in it.
Yep.
We're talking, dinosaur years ago, but I remember getting on that and following it all the way down to Johnston Center. How long did it take you to get here?
About 45 minutes, maybe. We could find a school bus, so that took a little bit longer.
Oh, gosh. Well, now we're going to talk about Have Mercy. Give us an idea what this is about. Mercy is a survivor, and this is for young adults, right?
It is. My target audience when writing it was high school students.
Mm-hmm.
It's about two sisters who are teenagers. They've both grown up in the foster care system. They both have a lot of trauma in their history, and they both deal with life and because of their trauma in very different ways. Yeah. Mercy is 18. She is still living in an independent living program, has a job, just trying to kind of do her time and make herself independent, get back on her feet. And her youngest sister, Lily, is a few years younger, and she's a runaway on the streets that has a whole lot of other problems like substance abuse and mental health stuff. So it's about a journey. It's about how the sisters deal with things in life and obstacles and challenges in very different ways because of the trauma they experienced as children.
This is your first? No, this is not your first book.
It's my first novel, yes.
It's first novel. Okay.
Yeah.
When you were on before, what was it? Did you have? Was it?
I've been published in some anthologies in Rhode Island. I've published a short story, 2 poems, and a children's story.
Okay. This is your first novel.
It is.
Did you do self? But when you went to yes, Stillwater.
You know Stillwater because you know Steve and Don.
Oh gosh, he's been on many times.
Yep.
And when we went down to the Authors Expo for the first time, I ought to say, I've told the viewers before, I was absolutely overwhelmed. It was wall to wall people.
I think this Saturday we have 135 authors.
Oh, I want to go, but my husband isn't up to it. He's going to be having treatments. But there's one in Danversport in the summer. I think Chris Aubert puts them on. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge one. Not as big as Rhode Island, but it's a big one, and maybe we'll be able to hit that one. But Barbara Ann will be at the Rhode Island Authors Expo in Cranston at
Roads on the Patuxent.
Roads, R-H-O-D-E-S, Roads on the Pawtucket.
Patuxent.
On the Patuxent.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get that all right.
Patuxent Village is a small part of Cranston.
And I remember coming from here, we went down the highways, maybe 146 to whatever, and I don't know how else we got there from there. But it is enormous. Many of the authors I know, they've been on the show, or I help them as their publicist. Mm-hmm. And it's great. It's what you got to go. It's for this Saturday, December 7th.
10:30 to 4.
And it's free.
It is free. Parking is free. Admission is free. There'll be panels. There'll be speakers. If you're an aspiring author yourself and you want to hear from people that write different genres, there'll be panels going on all day. There's tons of raffles. There's great raffles going on. There's food trucks.
Yeah.
And Santa.
Oh, Santa's going to...
So it's a really fun day.
He gets around.
He does.
Now, you are going to be there, even though she's had surgery recently. She's going to be there, and her friend, who's been a big help to her, she's going to sit at the table with her. Do you know if you'll be in the opening area? Or?
I'm not sure. I won't find out till I get there.
So they won't tell you?
Nope.
Oh, rats. I want to plan it. But this is good because you can get up and, not only go to the bathroom, but you can go and get something to eat.
Yep.
And I always tell my authors, take your book with you and walk around with your, business cards. You never know if one of the authors knows of a gig that somebody's looking for someone like you.
Right. Well, that's the beauty of belonging to the Association of Rhode Island Authors. You get a lot of exposure and a lot of opportunities to do speaking engagements, and wherever there's a place where they're having authors come and rent a table or a tent, there's just a lot of opportunities.
How far do you travel to do presentations and book signings? How far out will you go?
It depends. I mostly stay in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally I will go into Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I've done all different kinds of things. I've gone to high schools and talked to kids.
Yeah.
I've done other writer groups. I've done just about anything. I've done a lot of fairs and festivals, indoors, outdoors.
Yeah. You know, authors will say, well, you're suggesting I go to an arts and crafts festival. I say, yes, I am. Because when you go to an arts and crafts festival, do you ever see an author there? You're going to be the interesting part of this. And people are
Right.
going to stop.
Right.
Make sure you got a nice big signage
Mhm.
because you will be, not the Odyssey, but oh!
Right. There's less competition.
And I know I had one author, he sold 25 books at one
Wow.
arts and crafts fair. I'm like,
That's a good day.
more than at the library.
Yeah.
How long have you been writing, Barbara?
As long as I can remember.
Even when you were a kid?
Yeah, I think I started in first grade.
Did the teachers and your parents know that you were good at it?
I don't know if they knew I was good. I think they knew I did some of it.
And did you, like, as you go out, make little books and stapled them?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You did?
I had a couple of teachers along the way that really encouraged it.
Yeah.
And that was great. That made a big difference.
In high school, did they have any writers' groups or anything like that? in
No,
English?
not when I was in high school, but I ended up going to college and majoring in English
Where'd you go?
at Framingham State.
Oh, I went to Plymouth State.
Yeah, did you?
Yep.
Cool. And I ended up being the editor of the student newspaper. I got interested in some journalism classes, and I kind of took that route for a while.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I enjoy creative writing more.
Oh, so you went to high school. So when you got out of college and you majored in it, what did you do next?
I did a little bit of freelance newspaper work, but at that time it was shortly after Watergate, and there were a lot of new graduating reporters because everyone wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein.
Yeah.
So the competition was pretty fierce.
That was 74? When Nixon resigned? Was it 74?
Yeah, I was out of college in '77, so it was definitely
Okay. Yeah.
in that
I
era.
was living with my parents in Connecticut. I remember. Mom
Yeah.
had surgery that same day, and that's when Nixon resigned.
Mm.
The 70s,
Yeah.
early, yeah.
Yeah.
So till you were doing some journalism.
So I did do some, and then I kind of had my kids and stayed home for a while, and my career took a different path, and I ended up being a social worker,
Yeah.
which people have said to me, you're not using your education, but I really was. I was interviewing people and I was writing reports.
Yeah.
So those, journalism skills were pretty much honed by doing social work.
A lot of
you know.
paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the writing part.
Yeah.
And most people don't like to write, so that gave me a bit of an advantage. People would come to me to help them
So that's
write
what
their
you
reports.
did? As a social worker, how long did you do that?
I worked for DCF as an investigator for about 25 years.
Well, that's fascinating.
So I could write court reports and affidavits and investigative reports and everything.
That's tough. That's
pretty
tough
easily.
duty. Because,
was a
you can
tough
see the
job.
fear on the parents' face if maybe they've done something wrong and you're going to report it.
Yeah.
That's tough. And you got to step up. You see
Yeah.
something and you know that they're not going to like it, but you've got to report it.
Right.
Do many neighbors report, Barbara, or are they just
They do.
quiet?
A lot of neighbors report anonymously, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. Now, Mercy is a survivor. Before we forget, how can they get a hold of this book?
You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it at some small bookstores. Stillwater Books has it in downtown Pawtucket, Rhode Island. You can come to the expo on Saturday and buy it directly from me, and I will autograph it for you.
All right. Now, you're familiar with Tatnook up here in Barnes & Noble?
Yes.
Okay, because they're very popular. Mercy is a survivor. Growing up in foster care, she always played it safe by taking the right path. She's the good girl, or at least she was. Her younger sister is using drugs. Lily turns up just long enough to give birth to a premature baby, and Mercy faces decisions that rock her world. So she ended up in jail one lonely night.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Give us a hint.
Well, she faces some really tough decisions, and she doesn't have a lot of family support and background, so she makes some pretty bad decisions at times, and she gets herself into trouble and then has to dig herself out of a hole.
Mm-hmm.
But she sets a goal for herself, and she learns who she can trust, and it's a story about perseverance and taking chances, and
Courage.
definitely.
Having been a social worker, I could see that helping with this. You could see probably kids of all ages, young adults, and
Mm-hmm.
this is so important. And you said you've been at schools,
Mm-hmm.
high schools, middle schools.
Yeah, I spent a whole day at North Providence High School last year talking about my book, and I just loved it. The kids ask the best questions. They're so curious.
Yeah.
They are so respectful. It was just a great experience.
That is.
So I'm hoping to do some more of that because I think the message of my book
Yeah.
is more important than the book itself.
Yeah.
You know, I find I get more personal gratification from talking to groups. And we end up talking about the book, but then we end up talking about the bigger picture. People want to know about foster kids and foster care and that sort of things and trauma. And I like that message, and I'd rather talk about that to young people. So,
Yeah, she has to decide how to shake off the events from her past, or will they continue to shape the future? The world has always played hardball with Mercy. This shows a lot of courage, strength, and hope to the kids that you're relating this
definitely.
to. Did they buy your book, or how did they, if they wanted your book, obviously, how did they go about
I left a copy for the library. When
Yeah.
I visit schools, I usually leave a copy behind.
Yeah. So you think that there's going to be a sequel to this?
I'm working on one.
I knew. See, I don't think I've ever met an author who didn't have something. Will it be about Mercy?
I think I'm going to tell the story from Lily's point of view this time.
From her sister?
Yeah.
From her. Okay, so to
Because
see
they
how she evolved.
Lily's kind of the bad guy in this one because, you know, she's the one that kind of throws the monkey wrench into Mercy's plans and makes her life kind of miserable. But the reality is Lily's also a victim. So I'm kind of going to go back and show how she got to be where she is.
What happened to Lily and Mercy that made them, one is in foster care and the other one gets into addiction? What happened? What's the history?
The history is that they had a mom who had addiction and mental health issues who was very neglectful of them. They had fathers who didn't stick around. And the state stepped in and took custody of them. They tried to return them home. Mom couldn't maintain her sobriety and her parenting long enough for them to stay at home, so they ended up back in foster care.
And they ended up back there. How old, but when this story begins, how old is Mercy?
Mercy's 18. It starts out when she's 18, and it tells her story through flashbacks and remembering things and other stories along
How
the
old
way.
is the other, her sister?
She's 16.
Well, that's only 2 years.
Yeah.
And they've both been very affected. Were they abused? I mean, I know emotional abuse, but were they
Right.
also physical? Were they
It
physically
was
abused?
mostly neglect. I didn't want to get too graphic. I didn't want to include the hardcore physical and sexual abuse and things like that because my target audience was young people.
Yeah.
So I went with the neglect, which is pretty severe in itself.
Yeah, it happens. And with your background as a journalist and working as a social worker, you're shoo-in for knowing. You have
Right.
to pass on what you know.
Yep. And that Mercy and Lily are fictitious characters, but I certainly have met hundreds of kids just like them through the years.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's threads throughout the book of pieces of stories that I heard. But obviously they have to be fictional because of confidentiality. I can't write a story about real people that I know.
Or change their names.
Well, what I did do that was kind of fun is some of the other characters in the book, I was able to model or name after people that I knew, like a foster parent, a police officer,
Okay.
a social worker. You know, so I kind of gave a nod to some of the people I've worked with in the field by modeling them after them or naming them after them. So that was kind of fun.
That is really cool. Now, after the December 7th in Rhode Island, where are you going to appear this new year in 2020?
I'm not sure. I've got my feelers out there. The winter's kind of a slow time for things like that. There seems to be more opportunities in the spring and in the summer. But I'm hoping that come January I'll be able to have some times to get back into the schools because that's really my first love, to talk to the young people about it.
Definitely. Here in Massachusetts, too. I mean, we have 2 high schools right here in Upton.
Yep.
We have the Blackstone Valley Technical, and then we have the Nipmuc Regional, regular high school. So there's 2 right there. Do you go to junior high or just high school?
So far I've been doing just high school.
High school. And the English, which teachers, do you go in the classes?
I've been appealing to reading teachers, English teachers, and social studies teachers.
Okay.
You know, I've got some friends that work in the field that are reading specialists, so they've helped me
Yeah.
kind of open some doors.
That's a great thing. I can see the English teachers getting in on this. Also, what do you call them? Guidance counselors? Do they ever connect with you?
I haven't yet, but it'd probably be a good avenue to try.
See, that's one of the things I would think immediately, the guidance counselors,
Right.
because they know. What do you think of the foster care right now? What do you think about all this?
Yeah, it's really a mixed bag. I mean, thankfully there are people out there that do it for all the right reasons and that do it really well.
Yeah.
That really save lives and change lives for the better, either by fostering or adopting or both.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there aren't enough of them. One of the jobs I've had in the last few years is identifying kinship homes for families.
What's that?
For kids. Kids that come into care are, the department, I'm working in Rhode Island now, so DCYF in Rhode Island is mandated to try to place kids with family whenever possible. So part of the job I had was when a child came into foster care, they would make the referral to me at my agency, and my job was to identify kin, family, friends, and try to sort out a possible placement resource for them. So we'd get the kids out of the system and in the home of a family member
That
or a
must be
friend.
difficult, though, sometimes, right?
It was, and we would build a family tree, and sometimes we would have 125 people on it, And if we could find one placement resource and one backup placement resource, that was our goal. And that wasn't always easy because a lot of these families have generational dysfunction.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do, but there were successful cases where we were able to keep siblings together and put them with a family member that were really,
Is
really
this kind of
successful.
new? I hadn't heard about kinship.
It is new. I worked for a program called 30 Days to Family, which originated in St. Louis. We went to St. Louis to be trained on that model,
Yeah.
and we did that for about a year in Rhode Island with some success.
Wow, I could get this. I don't know if we have it up here in Massachusetts yet or not.
No,
haven't
I don't
heard-
think you do.
I think it's wonderful because I can't imagine. I mean, living in a foster home, not even being with your own family. To me,
Right,
that
it's very
was-
stressful.
Yeah. Do you have friends you grew up with who went through that type of thing?
I didn't, but I'm certainly know plenty of them professionally now, and I've become friends with foster families, and I'm still friends with a foster parent from Massachusetts who adopted one of the kids that I placed with her when he was a baby.
Do you think a lot of them, the ones who don't do it for a right reason, is it just the money? Do you think?
I don't know. A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
The reality is they don't pay people a lot of money to take in foster kids, so you'd have to have a lot of kids, for it to be financially beneficial, and then you've got 4 or 5 kids that you've got to feed and clothe and take to therapy, and it's a lot of work. I can't imagine that anybody does it for the money.
No, I don't think so. And I think that at least around here, I mean, years ago, I think I went to a class to learn more about it, and they're quite strict with how they come to the house. They come to see if it's up to code,
Yep.
standards and this type of thing.
Right.
There's no way they can tell. They have no magic wand to know
Right.
if the person is not good.
Right. But the assessment and licensing process is pretty complex. I did some home studies in Rhode Island last year where the people had already been through the 9-week class for fostering, and then they do a psychosocial assessment, which is really getting down and dirty with them about their personal life and their own parenting and what their strengths and
That's what
weaknesses
got me.
are.
Got very personal.
We look at their, their personal strengths and biases and how they were raised. We look at their finances. We look at their reference. We look at their dog. It's very, very intense and it's very personal. But it gives you a pretty good idea of where people are coming from and what their motivations are. So, after that, then they get referred to the license department and they go through the whole licensing part of it. So it is a pretty intense process when it works. Unfortunately, they're so desperate for foster homes that a lot of times they're trying to place kids
That's
with
what I
families that haven't finished the process yet because they've got to put them somewhere.
Yeah, but at best, do they try to match the child, their personality, and with
In a perfect world, they do. That was
Yeah.
part of the assessment that I did.
Yeah.
I would have them identify their strengths and their interests. And so, ideally, if you had a child who liked to write,
Yeah.
and you had an English teacher who was a foster parent or a librarian, you would try to match them up.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the social workers are so inundated and so overworked, and their caseloads are so high and out of control that kind of matching just doesn't always happen. Which is why the kinship stuff is so important.
Yeah,
Because if you
definitely.
can get them with a family member or someone that's already invested in them and invested in the family, I think their prognosis is much better for success.
Barbara, how again can people get a copy of Have Mercy?
You can find Have Mercy on Amazon, and you can come to the Rhode Island Authors Expo on Saturday, and you can buy one directly from me.
How cool is that? Now, if somebody wants to have you come and give a presentation, how would they reach you on your email?
They can find, I have a Facebook author page.
Okay.
It's facebook.com/Barbara Ann Whitman author.
Okay, Barbara Ann Whitman .author. Okay, and you'd be willing to think about it if somebody like maybe a high school right over here or wherever.
Oh, I'd be happy to. I would love to.
Connected with you and said, "Geez, we'd like to have you come."
Right.
Do you reach out, or do they usually reach out to you?
It's been on a little of each.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. They probably hear. How many high schools have you been to in Rhode Island? Probably. quite a
Only
few.
a couple.
Really?
Mhm.
I was going to say you've got a smorgasbord of high schools.
Yeah,
out there.
that's my goal in January.
Yeah, and you're in Johnson. There's a Johnson High School? Is
Yep.
there? Okay. Then Providence has 2 or 3 branches. How many do they have?
They've got quite a few.
Yeah, we lived up not far from what's that college?
Rhode Island
PC.
College? Oh, Providence
PC,
College.
and in fact, we could look down the back of our porch to sort of like an area not far from the old women and infants hospital was.
Yep.
And if you get to go right down Smith Street, you're going to end up near the City Hall, I think, right?
Mhm. Yep, take you right into town.
Have you always been in Rhode Island?
Now, I grew up in Attleboro, in Massachusetts. But I've been in Rhode Island since about 1977, so
I like it.
I'm a transplant.
Yeah, I like
I've
it.
been in Rhode Island a lot longer than I was in Massachusetts.
You were
so.
born in Mass?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, gosh. Now, tell us more about the next one coming up. Do you have a title?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
And I'm going to. It kind of starts out at a pivotal point in the first book, and it is more from Lily's point of view, and it's more about her and how she got to this point and what led up to her being on the streets and having a baby.
Amazing. Now, she's also, I love it, when you get the bookmark. I love that. You know how important that is. You know, when you go to fairs and you go to the different places,
Right.
You speak at a library, a bookstore, a person, they want to think about buying it. Maybe they don't buy it that day.
Right.
They take this home with them.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say they're reading something and they're like, oh, yeah, I loved her book.
Right, I was going to buy that, but I forgot. But
Exactly.
now you've got a reminder.
Is this is your second time at the expo?
Yes.
This is your second time.
Yep.
So you were there last year.
I was.
We just missed you. I think we were there 2 years ago,
Mhm.
3 years ago. It's been going on for I don't know how long.
Yeah, I forget which annual it is, but they've been doing it for a lot of years, and they do a fabulous job.
Oh my
It is a
God.
lot of work. It takes a lot of coordinating, a lot of planning, and as soon as it's over, they stop planning the next one.
Yeah, I mean, I went in there and I talked with an author, one of the first ones I was talking with, and she says even she was overwhelmed.
Yeah,
I mean, you are right. Up, one
it's
table.
a lot.
It is.
But there's all genres, and it's a great time of year because I think an autograph book makes a great gift.
Yeah.
And we've got children's authors, we've got young adult authors, we've got sci-fi, romance,
Oh, yes, we've had our
historic
sci-fi guy.
novels. I
Keith-
mean, we
Keith-
get everything.
I can't think. Keith, what's Keith's last name? Can you remember it? Our sci-fi dude? He's terrific. Oh, Keith Carrero.
Oh, yep.
He always has over there, and there's
Yep.
a number of other people who've been on.
It's amazing how many talented authors there are in the little state of Rhode Island.
Yeah,
It's pretty
they-
overwhelming.
But don't they also come over from Massachusetts too? Or are they not?
We've got a few members that are not from Rhode Island, but
Yeah, probably
you
the
know.
border,
Yep.
something like that.
Yep.
What would you suggest to you talk to a lot of the young adults if they want to write a book about maybe something they've been through or something? What would you suggest to them? Be brave.
Yeah,
Step
no,
up.
just write your story. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't get hung up on the semantics and the punctuation and all of that and the formatting because you have plenty of times and plenty of opportunities to edit it when you're done. I think the important thing is to start writing, tell your story, let the story be your focus. Don't worry about how long it is, don't worry about anything else. Decide who your audience is and who you're writing for and just tell your story. And then once your story is told, then you've got a manuscript. Now you've got a place to start.
I know I talked with some authors when they were beginning. They said they were always worried that they had to have a certain amount of pages.
Yeah.
I went, I'm not so sure about that. What do you think?
No, I think it's more important to tell your story and then
Yeah.
see where you are when you're done. Because
Exactly.
if you want it longer, you can add to it. If you want it shorter, you can edit it.
This is a great size. Girls, you could put this in your pocketbook.
You know,
Yeah,
I
we're-
kind of wrote that with my son in mind. I raised two children. My daughter is an avid reader. My son was not an avid reader. He hated to read.
Yeah.
And when he was in high school, he would have his summer reading list, and I would take him to the library where the shelf was, and he had to pick 3 books, and he always picked the thinnest books. So I thought,
Not dumb.
I don't want a book that's overwhelming for people. I want a book that's easy
Yeah.
for people to read.
Definitely.
And mostly my Amazon reviews are all adults. So
Yeah.
I've successfully, I think, written a crossover book where my target audience was high school kids, but
Yeah.
adults enjoy it as well.
Thanks to the Fiction Writers Group at Harmony Library. Is this in Johnston?
Now it's at Gloucester. I lived in Gloucester, Rhode Island before I lived in Johnston.
How far was Gloucester from Johnston?
Probably half an hour.
Because we have a Gloucester, Mass. It's
Yeah.
way up. Okay. Did you get snowbound the other day?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Not too bad at my house.
Bad. Most of all, I am awed every day by the courageous resolve of foster children and the tender devotion of those who open their homes and their hearts to care for them. This is for your first. This is for your first book. My gosh, I just have you picked out the cover, right?
I did. That was the hard part. But, Stephen Dawn hooked me up to an artist, and I kind of had an idea of what I wanted, so I explained what I wanted. The first few I got were not what I wanted, so I tried again with a second artist, and bang, they sent me like 3, and I loved all of them, so.
That's why I tell people, Stillwater is great, but also if they want to self-publish, going online, You get to pick your own covers.
Right, you have a lot of control over it.
Well, it should. I don't want someone else picking my cover.
Right,
If I was going to write
right.
a book.
You have
I
an
know
idea of what you want.
You know? Did you?
Right.
You knew this has got the swing set right on it.
Yeah, I chose a pivotal scene in the book that's maybe 4 chapters in, so it's not far in, but it's kind of the setting of a pivotal scene, and I thought, you know, a park with a swing set at night with maybe a lamp, and that's kind of what I proposed, and that's what they came up with, and when I saw it, it was perfect.
We need a picture of you.
There's one in there, I think, on the back cover.
Is there?
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love it.
It's a selfie.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so there is a picture of it. I always look to see, you know, and that's great. Now that people can see who you are, besides being on here. Have you been on radio yet over in Providence?
I did 2 radio interviews at WADK in Newport.
Oh, are they FM
very
or AM?
fun.
Are they AM, FM?
AM, I believe.
They're
I
AM.
did one in studio, which was a blast, and then I was supposed to do the second one in studio, but it was right after my surgery, and I wasn't mobile yet, so they let me call in, so I did it from the comfort of my recliner.
Oh, how cool!
Which
is
was
that?
fun, but I really like being in the studio. I like the spontaneity of it, not knowing what's coming next, and I thought it was a lot of fun.
Well, you know WBZ up in Boston. Some of their talk show hosts are pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, and if you get in touch with them, I know a couple of them, but I think that this is great, and I can't. When do you think the next one's going to be out? I haven't even read this one yet.
I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place with my writing. When I wrote that book, I was very focused because I wanted to write a book.
Yeah.
I spent my whole life saying, I'm going to write a book, and then finally I found a writer's group where I could get that kind of support, and I need a deadline, so I had to write something every month.
Yeah.
And I wrote nothing else while I was writing that book. But once I kind of checked that off my list, now I'm kind of writing things that I like. Sometimes, you know, I've got two books that I'm writing. You know, I'll take time off to write a short story, or I'll write a poem to submit to something. So I'm a little less focused than I was the first time around, so I'm not making any promises.
You got a lot on your
but
plate.
it's coming.
Was this done by when time you hit the hospital for surgery?
Oh, yeah. It was published last year.
Did you bring a copy with you to show to the staff? They probably would have bought it.
No, I didn't. I probably should have.
Yeah.
The sympathy vote, if nothing else, right?
Everything. I tell you, get out there, bring it. Oh, by the way,
I keep a box in my trunk. It's got my media sheet and, you know, everything in it. So
How
just in
old-
case someone wants to know, I can whip out a book. Oh, I just happen to have one.
You kept a bunch of. Don't forget down in the Upton Library, the authors, local authors section. You'll
Yep.
see a copy of Barbara Ann Whitman's "Have Mercy." How old are your kids, Barbara? One of they're the same age as my son. He's 26.
Oh, my daughter just turned 40.
No, he's 27.
No.
He just turned. He's a millennial.
My daughter just turned 40. My son is still in his 30s.
Okay, Wally's a millennial, 27. They're a group.
Yep.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And my
It's-
son, the non-reader, probably has bought 10 copies of my book. Every time I had a book event, he was there and he would buy copies.
Does he give them to his friends?
Yeah.
Well, they would be parents. My son's a parent right now, so maybe he gives it to them.
Yeah, no, he gives them to his friends. I went out to eat one time at Applebee's, and he said, you know, you're a celebrity there.
Yeah.
Because he goes there to watch football, and he's friends with the staff, and apparently they've all read my book. I didn't know that while I was eating there, so I'm going to have to go back.
Oh, that is fantastic.
I know.
Oh, gosh, I hope you do get out there a lot more. This is great. All right, we're going to have her back. She's going to let me know when the next one is up.
I definitely will.
Grab a copy of Have Mercy. Go on downstairs at Upton Library. You can go online, Amazon, right?
Yep.
And if somebody wants you to come and speak, again, how can they reach you at?
Facebook.com/Barbara Ann Whitman author.
Okay. And, she's going to have her come to your high school or whatever. And books, there's so many books. Oh, so many bookstores around. They're popping up everywhere. They're like coffee bookstores.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, authors, I send a lot of my authors to those. They get out there that way, too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun.
It is fun.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you heal up real quick.
Thanks, me too. I'm working on it.
See you next time.
Riding on a shooting star,